I was working 90, 100 hours a week. I turned to alcohol. I was an alcoholic, very, very much so. It's part of my story and part of my journey was,
Mhm.
basically going from an overworked alcoholic to where I am now.
What I feel is that people love power and control. So it is not easy to give up control because you have people working for you as a business owner, and that that is something that fascinates most people as well.
When you have a family and the harder you work doesn't, the harder I worked didn't mean I was gaining anything financially. So it was kind of like a repetitive cycle of just continuously working and overworking. And then, like I said, I mean, I turned that into a drinking habit. And then people talk about culture all the time. Like, I've been with companies that have big, large sales forces that have zero culture, and then I have little Sargon here where we don't have many employees, but we do have a much stronger culture because of the interaction with the community.
Mhm.
I think that branding is all about the community, and when I say that, I mean, do you actually attend events and not go to those events to sign up people for inspections or give your cards out? We do
Yes.
events for and truly for the kids.
Like there are two kinds of marketing. One is brand marketing and the other is direct marketing. Now, if we talk about direct marketing, it is like Facebook ads, Google ads, the billboards, the door to doors. You can measure the ROI. This is direct marketing. But if you have to create a legacy, you will have to invest in brand marketing. And you know what brand marketing is? You cannot measure its ROI because you just have to give to the community.
Like, and Bob, why do you people, in my opinion, need to figure out why they're doing this? If we would get rid of what you're never going to get rid of it, but if you minimize the mindset of you're doing this for money, and people actually start doing it because they care about houses, they care about people, they enjoy the satisfaction of a completed project.
How would you summarize your experience with insurance since beginning till now?
You have to actually have experts these days and be prepared to explain to homeowners that this is going to take probably a year. I'm not talking about a little $12,000 claim, but anything that's extensive with like a tree through a house or something over $40,000, $50,000 claim is typically going to take a level of experienced people way beyond what the insurance carrier is providing on their end.
Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the Roofing Millionaires Podcast, the only roofing podcast where we don't promote anyone and we don't sell you anything. In this episode, we are sitting down with Wesley Bryce from Sargon Roofing in Texas, and Wesley shares his journey from being an alcoholic to running his own roofing company and then shutting down his roofing company to work at Sargon Roofing. His journey will teach you that why it is important to give up control on the external world sometimes to gain control over your own self. Plus, we have also talked about how you can train your roofing sales reps in an ethical way and when is the right time to actually file a roofing insurance claim. Do like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want us to bring more roofing experts like this on the show who can inspire you to become a better version of yourself as well. Let's dive in.
Morning, morning.
Good morning, Wesley. Good morning, Wesley. Welcome to the Roofing Millionaires Podcast. It's great to have you on the show here. How are you feeling today and what's going on in your life these days?
Doing good, good. Thanks for having me. Shoot. What's going on is just, living, enjoying life with the family, work, and church, and just continuing to progress as an individual, both in business and in personal life. So each day is, every day we wake up is a good day.
Cool. So, would you give me a brief intro about yourself or a background detail of how did you end up in roofing and how was your childhood and like how was your life before roofing and after roofing?
Sure. So I was born in '88, so I'm 36. I grew up just a little south of Houston, close to a little in between Galveston and Houston.
Hmm?
As a kid, I played baseball, fished with my dad, was into sports, and didn't have a super great childhood, but I didn't have a super bad childhood. My dad was a good financial provider, and He took care of us, and I grew up in construction. My dad, he flipped rental homes. He started off small with like small little townhomes. So, I mean, as early as I can remember, 9 or 10 years old, I had a paintbrush and a roller, and was just getting after it with my dad, helping him, fix up properties as a young kid. Well, and that's really how I first touched construction, and was really with my dad as a kid, going through high school, and I kind of bounced around a little bit. Wasn't the greatest kid. I moved with my birth mom up to Ohio when I was 16 for a summer, and I always had a work ethic. I mean, I bought my own truck when I was 15 by working on a shrimp boat, which was the hardest job I've ever had in my life, still to this day. A deckhand on a shrimp boat. And at 16, I was in Ohio for a summer and needed to make money. I was always wanting to, take care of myself. Up north, I hopped on a roofing crew for an entire summer. I learned roofing, and I started out as, basically lugging shingles, just as a helper, and then started nailing and, learning the trade a little bit. And I came back to Houston and finished high school, and I got into college and realized, I don't want to be an accountant.
Okay.
College wasn't exactly, I mean, I was more focused on paying my bills at the time. As a young adult on your own, it's really hard to go to school full time with, minimal support, if any. So I talked to a buddy. He's actually an insurance agent. And and I was like, yeah, I was working at a restaurant or something. And he said, man, what about roofing? I'm like, well, I know how to roof. And he's like, you don't understand. He's like, you sell roofs here. He's like, white boys don't roof in Houston. Okay. It's just how it is. You're really not going to see any roofers here that are Caucasian. It's just the way it is. And I was like, selling roofs. And I'm like 19, 18 years old. And I ended up getting a job. I walked into an office. I felt like I knew more about roofing than the owners because I had actually installed roofs, and they handed me some business cards and a little piece of paper with with their spew on it, and said, get after it. And ever since then, I've been involved in roofing my entire career. So it's 16 going on almost 17 years. And I've held many different positions, from sales to operations to sales manager. I owned my own company. In 2013, I started my own roofing company, and I did that solo, worked through Hurricane Harvey, and almost worked myself to death. About 4 years ago, I had bounced around and worked a lot of hurricanes once I gave my stuff, and just kind of learn the ins and outs of really the insurance game as a full-scale contractor, restoration contractor, not just roofing. I do so much more than just roofing, even though roofing is the bread and butter. High-ticket items get done in a day or two. But I focus on helping people get their homes back together. And these days, the industry has shifted tremendously since I've started. So now I really focus on operating this company and doing mostly retail.
Okay.
I still work with insurance as well. It's basically whatever the day throws at me, I kind of tackle. You can see from my posts, I'm not a big fan of insurance claims too much anymore. However, that doesn't mean I give up on homeowners and leave them high and dry.
Okay. Thank you for that introduction, and that gave me a lot of stuff to talk about. First of all, I want to begin with, you entered into roofing through a friend who was an insurance agent. So now you don't like the insurance process. Is he still your friend, or you have lost him?
No, he's still my friend for sure. That didn't change my wife is a licensed insurance agent, so we'll have to live in a house with somebody involved with insurance, right? It's not so much the agents that have put a bad taste in my mouth. It's just the whole entire claim process. The way the customer service has diminished, in my opinion, both on the contractor and the insurance side. The whole industry and the changes and the negatives from the changes are a direct result of all parties. So there's not one finger to blame at all when it comes, and I could even be at fault in that because of the way that I was taught in the roofing game.
Okay.
But no, everybody, I try to get along with everybody. I try to keep the enemy Enemy list real short these days.
Okay, so this podcast, Wesley, it is for people who either want to enter into roofing or who are into roofing, and now they are looking to they are seeking wisdom from guys like you. So you just mentioned that you owned your roofing company. You started it in 2013, and as far as I know, if I am not wrong, you are now working at Sargon Roofing. So that is another roofing company. So what was that transition?
I mean, the transition was, so we had a huge flood here. It was Hurricane Harvey in 2017. And really what happened was that storm kind of took the life out of me. I was working 90, 100 hours a week. I turned to alcohol. I was an alcoholic, very, very much so. It's part of my story, and part of my journey was, basically going from an overworked alcoholic to where I am now. But the transition was really, I just got tired of doing everything on my own, and I felt like I didn't have any support. So I decided to just kind of I didn't end on a bad note. Nobody was mad at me. The customers, everybody was happy, but I just kind of slowly but surely shut the doors and said, look, I can do better for myself mentally and financially for my family, not working this hard, doing everything on my own and going and working for other people. And I still feel that way to this day. There are many people that want to be the owner, and I was that person for a long time, but you don't see the mental toll that it takes, and you don't think about those things. Especially, I was young. I mean, I was 22, 23 years old and started my own company. I didn't have any business education. I was just winging it, saying, hey, I'm going to be an owner, right? And I learned that being an owner doesn't necessarily make you happy at any given moment. You might think you are, and it does work for some people. But for me, I just got burnt out. I did 2 years of flood restoration. And basically when I shut the doors, I decided, okay, I'm going to go to work a hurricane in Louisiana. So I did that. I went and worked for I would find local, well-established companies and go chase storms, and lived out of a camper. My crew leader, Victor, we would go too, and I'd bring the crews with me. And I went to Florida, I went to Louisiana, and I have a daughter now, and the traveling with the family just doesn't really work. And so after about a year or two, I was really missing out on a lot of time watching my daughter, grow up at 1 to 2 years old. And I said, I'm going back to Houston. I'm going to find a company there, and I'm going to stay local because I'm good at what I do. I don't necessarily need to travel anymore. And it just so happened, Jesse, who's the owner of Sargon, I actually installed his roof 7 years ago. I knocked his door and put his roof on, and he called me and said, hey, the oil field is slow right now, and I want to start a roofing company, and I need somebody with experience. And we just hit it off, and that's really how Sargon Roofing started, was by a phone call and an invitation to meet Jesse at lunch and see what his future, what he was. He's a businessman, great owner. He's my best friend now. He's like a brother to me now. He was my best man at my wedding, and we talk every single day. And for the first 3 years when we started Sargon, there wasn't maybe not 3 years. For a year straight, I was with that man 6 days a week and just showed him the ropes of the construction side and the roofing. And at the same time, he taught me the business and the marketing side. So it's really been a really good partnership with me. And as the vice president, I handle most of the operations, and I handle a lot of things. I do most of everything, but I always have him in the background, even if he's in the oil field or out of state. He's always there to help me, and he's really taught me a whole lot. But it all started just me coming back home, a phone call, and we hit it off. And I said, yeah, let's make a run at this thing. And we're a little over 3 years into this now. I think 3.5, and we're on a good pace.
Perfect. So how did you come to this conclusion? Because what I feel is that people love power and control. So it is not easy to give up control, because you have people working for you as a business owner, and that is something that fascinates most people as well. So how did you come to this conclusion, and how did you tell yourself that, okay, I am losing control now, and I am gaining control over myself, and I am losing everything that I am holding on to. I am just emptying myself maybe, or I am just creating space to heal myself.
I mean, you kind of said it. I mean, when you have a family and the harder you work the harder I worked didn't mean I was gaining anything financially. So it was kind of like a repetitive cycle of just continuously working and overworking. And then, like I said, I mean, I turned that into a drinking habit, and it wasn't a habit, it was a problem. It took a long time to realize. It took some legal problems for me. It took,
Mm-hmm.
my family
Mm-hmm.
literally saying like, look, you're gonna have to change, or we're gonna hit the door. And for me, it was really just getting a relationship with God too. Is just a lot of things happened to just realize that it's not just to be in control. And I still have a problem with it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's certain things in the company I only want me to do because I only trust, my, and that's one of my downfalls. It is hard to relinquish the control. For me, it wasn't the ownership part. Like my company name was, a lot of people get attached. My company name was Bryce Solutions, my last name.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was cool for the first year wearing your name on a shirt, but then you realize there's so much responsibility. And if one little thing goes wrong and one little rumor these days gets hit on social media or something, that can ruin you, I see it all the time. But the control portion was really just me realizing I wasn't in the right mental space that I needed to be. And the
Mm-hmm.
way that I needed to get there was to have some help. So, instead of being the alpha and the dictator, like, hey, you don't know it all. You know construction, you know how to talk to people, but you need to learn the marketing. You need to know business. And that's what Jesse taught me is the industry
Mm-hmm.
changed. I mean, it used to be knocking on doors was easy, but COVID changed. I mean, sure, you can still get jobs knocking doors. But people are a lot more reluctant. Now it's all of this, it's SEO, and then it's AI. And basically he taught me you have to pivot in business. So I was doing the same thing over and over and over, thinking I was going to get better results, and I didn't. So that's really what brought the change. Was I realized that okay, you might have worked 10, 12 years and busted your butt, but you're still in the same spot. So what are we going to do to change it? And for me, it was just accepting that I needed to bring on help and to take a different role.
Okay, so back in time you were at the base camp of this mountain, but now I believe that you are at the top. Like, you know that what are the things that I did wrong. So if you have to conclude that for someone who is exactly in your shoes, and he is doing the same mistakes as well, so now I feel that you know their solutions. So what were those mistakes? Because you have mentioned that you were doing some mistakes in business. So what were those mistakes specifically, and what are the solutions that if you go back in time you would have done if you had the knowledge that you have right now?
I think the biggest mistake is one of the biggest is starting a business without knowing business education, right?
Hmm.
Especially when it comes to Uncle Sam and taxes. Most roofing companies don't make it because they get big bills and they don't realize how much they're going to owe at the end of the year, right?
Hmm.
So without having, a really good CPA, first and foremost, that's the first thing you're going to need to have when you start a business. I did it on my own thinking I formed my own LLC. I did all the paperwork and all that. And first thing I should have done was have a little bit more business education and know about the business taxes, know about what true overhead costs are. You might
Hmm.
think you know what overhead costs are, but you really don't account for the little things, the tolls, the gas, I mean, there's little things, the shirts, the hats, the stuff for the lunch for the guys. I mean, all of the overhead is double what I initially thought it would be as a young business owner. So, I mean, the main thing I strongly encourage young business owners is to make sure that they educate themselves on things like profit margins, selling at the right margins to cover your overhead and still have enough to pay taxes, pay your bills. And guess what? It gets slow sometimes. So that's the other thing I didn't factor in. Sure, you might have a really busy spring, but you have to learn how to balance in your budget. I mean, all young people that's a very tough thing for them. But if you don't save some of the money and you go, like, we see it all the time. There's companies that extravagantly spend when they're in the good times, but then they fall on their face when it's the hard times because they didn't prepare for the hard times. And I was one of those people as well.
Hmm.
Knowing business, having your accounting set up, and And also having a support system. For me, it's church and the people that are involved in my church and my Sunday school class that are in my family that are a support system. But back then, my support system was my drinking buddies and friends, and I wasn't surrounding myself with people that knew more than me. I was surrounding myself at a young age with people that knew, in my opinion, less than me. You can only make yourself better by hanging out with people and associating yourself with people that know more than you so they can educate you. The last thing is, you got to humble yourself. Big ego happens when you start a company and you're 22, 23 by yourself, and you think you're on top of the world, but in reality, people that age, they're more self-centered and don't realize that there's always people way, way levels above you. That's one thing I should have done when I was young, was just associate myself with higher education, and you don't have to be the loudest one in the room and always have an answer or be right. Even if I love to talk and I love to, give my opinion, sometimes it's better to hold your tongue and to listen from somebody a little more experienced. And that's something I've learned over the years quite a lot.
I think you have given a great perspective here, because I did the same mistake as well. 2 or 3 years later, my company was named on my last name. I was doing everything on my own name. And I think that is ego. That is the first thing that we have to conquer. The second thing is, there is a reason why people say that you have to hire people who are better than you, because they know the stuff that you don't know, and you will need them to succeed. And that comes down to ego as well, because we do not want anyone to interrupt us or to tell us that we are doing wrong as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, sometimes the truth hurts, right? But if you take from it that a lot of times when people call you out, sometimes it's not an attack, it's just more or less advice that you will take as an attack, because you have that high ego and you haven't quite humbled yourself to the extent to where you can take constructive criticism, right? I was very tough. You couldn't tell me what to do 10 years ago without me having some sort of, oh no, this is how you do it. This is the way you need to talk to a judge, all this. And now I actually enjoy more of hearing everybody else's experience and what they're doing, and then developing my own system based off of, okay, what are the leaders in the industry doing and what is working, And it's good to be able to, it might have taken me a little longer than it should have, but I'm only 36, I still have 25 years in this industry. So I've never done this to get rich. I actually enjoy putting people's homes back together. My biggest passion is the reaction that homeowners give when you exceed the expectation. And that's one of our core values, is producing exceptional customer experiences. Because in reality, that is what I feel that I do, is overperform instead of underperform, right? Whether it be deadlines or just the way something comes out. I think that early in my career, it was a money chase, thinking just like everybody else. Nowadays, everybody understands this is not a get-rich-quick thing like it used to be, where you go hire. It used to be insurance free for all, paying for everything, $500 deductibles, no problem, you're eating that. The game has changed, so now you actually have to have some experience, and you have to be educated to compete with companies that do have those qualities. That's where, back then anybody could sell a roof whenever I first started. But nowadays, people learned to explore the internet and to dig in and to research companies and to, I had my company for 7 years. I never once asked somebody to do a Google review for me. Never. Think about that. That's a recipe for failure these days, right? So there's just all these little things that over time that you learn, and I still have a lot to learn. That's the beautiful thing about the roofing or just most industries. You're never going to know it all. And if you go in with that mind aspect that today I try to learn something new every day. And that's kind of cliche, but whether it be from a customer, from a public adjuster, from somebody like you, from a lawyer, there's many, many avenues to learn to continue your education. And that's what I try to do.
I was going to ask you that customer care, is it something that you learned right now, or was it something that you had in since beginning, but you already answered that you learned it since you have started working with Jesse probably. So there is a lot of hype about branding, that like you have to create a roof brand, and that most people think that it is about the logo or it is about the fonts or colors. It's not about that. It's about, first of all, like the way I define a roofing brand is that there are two things. First of all, a brand is not for everyone. You have to decide who you actually want to work with, and you cannot serve an entire neighborhood if you want to build a brand. And the second thing is you have to know what do those people actually want, like what are their problems, and you have to give that solution to them in the easiest possible way, and that makes you a company that those specific people never want to lose. And if you fulfill these two conditions, you make a roofing brand, and that comes down to customer care and being obsessed with the problems of the customers as well. How do you see this? Because most people, as you said, they are using their last name as their company's name, and I have no offense with that. But I think that if someone reads your name and they get a feeling that, okay, this company really cares about me, that is a different kind of, in comparison with if someone reads your name and they feel that, okay, this is just Wesley's company.
Right. I mean, yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I mean, a brand is really what I think it starts with is being genuine. If your target audience smells out that you're doing this as a get rich quick or as something other than what your real intent is, then you won't be able to actually build your brand. It would be like, kind of like you're saying, a fake brand where it's just billboards. We see, you know, people talk about culture all the time. Like, I've been with companies that have big, large sales forces that have zero culture, and then I have little Sargon here where we don't have many employees, but we do have a much stronger culture because of the interaction with the community. Mm-hmm. I think that branding is all about the community, and when I say that, I mean, do you actually attend events and not go to those events to sign up people for inspections or give your cards out? We do events for and truly for the kids. So we're not bringing, sure, is our logo on our tent? Yes, but I'm not sitting there trying to sign up somebody for a roof inspection. I am not even looking for any type of business positivity other than, yes, getting my name out. But I think branding is truly showing who you are as a character. And if you want to hit your community that your target is, you have to show up and you have to be a part of that community. And being a part of a community isn't just talking about it on Facebook. It's actually action. I mean, we do Easter events, school sponsorships, we do realtor events, all types of different community events to parades. Jesse and I truly do it out of our heart, especially for kids. We really love kids. I have a kid. Jesse doesn't have kids, but he's like the greatest uncle. He's got nieces and nephews and all that. So like for us, it's really about showing who you really are instead of just talking about it. Sure. I mean, do we give out shirts? Do we do that type of branding? Yes, but that's just one little part, because the people, that's just another shirt. That's just another hat. If the people remember the face behind, or one or two, or in our case, they remember all of us because we're like a little family. So they even remember my daughter, Savannah, you know. For me, it's all about action. It's not just talking about it. I see a lot of talk, a lot of people saying community is their core value, but they're not doing shit about it, you know, whereas...
Yes.
And even us, we do a lot, and you'll see some of it posted, but the majority of the stuff we do, we don't even post. I think I mentioned that the other day. You saw one of my comments, because you're posting to people in the same industry that it's just your competition. Like, it's a game. Like, and I'm starting to realize, like, I'm tired of, sure, I go look at huge roofs and all that. Man, the only people that care about that is nobody. Like,
yes, nobody. You're right.
Your customers or your potential customers don't give a damn if you're inspecting a 300 square roof, or if you're taking a picture on a roof with an adjuster. The honest approach to branding is not doing that and spending that time and effort back with your customers, Like for me, I'm always inviting my customers over to the house for dinner. I tell my customers my path, my journey from alcoholism to God, becoming a Christian, becoming baptized and getting married in my church. And that's part of what I feel is important to me is when you're able to expose your weaknesses to customers
Mm-hmm.
or the community and tell them where you've come from, and they understand that you're genuine and you're honest when you're telling them that it's not always, I haven't always been like this, and this is what it took to get me here. And that's really what I think branding is. It's a lot slower process than paying
Yes.
$20,000 for a billboard. It's a lot slower process than hiring 15 uneducated people off the street and giving them a one-day class and telling them to go knock doors and building a brand by these flyers. That's not a brand. That's like you said. That's not a true brand. It might come off as a brand for a short time, but in the long run, that,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, doesn't work.
You have just hit it the nail on the head with this. And one thing that I tell to my clients is exactly the same. Like there are two kinds of marketing. One is brand marketing and the other is direct marketing. Now, if we talk about direct marketing, it is like Facebook ads, Google ads, the billboards, the door to doors. You can measure the ROI, like you can measure that this is the amount of money I put in and this is the return that I got from this investment. This is direct marketing. But if you have to create a legacy, you will have to invest in brand marketing. And you know what brand marketing is? You cannot measure its ROI because you just have to give to the community.
Can't buy it. Can't buy it.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Wesley, I know it's quite personal for you, but you just mentioned that you share your story with your customers too. So, I want to ask you as well, like how, because most people in roofing, they are coming from a background that is not as much as good as most other persons have in the society. Either they are drug addicts or they are convicted felons, and they are like pretty much into all these things as well. So what were your learnings from being an alcoholic, and like what are the things that made you realize that this is something that you have to give up? What were the experiences?
I mean, the experiences were, letting alcohol take over and make decisions for you in life. So instead of spending time with your family or your daughter or bettering yourself, and alcoholism is it's the devil. I mean, it really is. Alcohol to me is the devil because there is no positive out of it, especially for somebody like me with an addictive personality that's gonna go big or go home on anything I do. So that's kind of,
Mhm.
I'm a very bad mix for drinking too much, But I learned a lot by the legal trouble that I got in. I'm a convicted felon. I have 3 DWIs, and I'm not scared to say that. I'm on probation still, but this last one, I was never religious, and I literally had an encounter with the Holy Spirit. Like, if you want to say it's God, Jesus, whatever, but I mean, the
Mhm.
Holy Spirit woke me up out of my drunken blackout and said, "You're not going to drink anymore, and you're going to start going to church. And today's the day that you change your life, or you're going to die." Literally, what the encounter I had was, the Holy Spirit saying, "I'm giving you a second chance, but you're gonna have to do something this time." And not everybody gets the benefit or gets to have the story or testimony like me where that really did happen, and it very much did. And I'm not going to get all into it religiously, but I mean, I couldn't see for a second. Everything was white, and I literally had the Holy Spirit come over me. And I was not religious. I didn't necessarily even believe in God. I saw both of my moms pass away, one from cancer.
Mhm.
She raised me from when I was 10. This is in 2021. And then in
Mhm.
2022, my birth mother died from a fentanyl overdose in Ohio. And I just turned to alcohol and really just turned away from God even more. But when I had that encounter with God, I actually listened. I went to church the
Mhm.
next week and realized, and slowly but surely, I have a really good minister. My wife goes, my daughter's involved now, but church has really grounded me in reading the Bible, and I mean, it'll tell you point blank, this is thousands of years ago. You need to stay sober. You're not going to be who you need to be if you're not. I mean, it's repetitive all through the Bible, through scripture. And when you start digging into it and you're like, man, sure, did I waste, 12, 13 years of my life on this? Yes, but at least it gave me the opportunity where I am now to change. So for me, it started with God. And then once I built a relationship with God, everything just continued to get better and better and better. And even now, I mean, and this is going on 3 years now. So, but yeah, the bad experiences in my childhood and the trauma and maybe the lack of parenting and, not a true family environment, all of those things contributed. My dad drinking with me when I was 15, 16, that contributed all and led up to this explosion of alcoholism after my mom's died, where I really just went down the drain. And, the saying is you got to hit rock bottom to start making your way up. And God saved me when I was at rock bottom. That's the truth. Literally, and I have to give all glory to God on that, because I could not have changed by myself. My wife wasn't going to change me. I wasn't going to change myself. That we'd already been through that over and over. And it truly was God. So I'm blessed to still be alive and be able to share my story. And I mean, I customers all the time, you have a hard day, you finish, and they're like, hey, Wes, you want a beer? And I'm like, sorry, I don't drink. And they're like, I don't drink. I'm like, I'll tell them. I'll be like, well, no, trust me, you don't want me to drink because your job wouldn't have gotten done near as good. And you probably wouldn't have liked me as much if you would have, been meeting me hungover or whatever like that.
I'm proud of you, by the way. I recall that I had 3 guests on my podcast. They were convicted felons and they had the exact same experience. Like, they told me that one day they were sitting down somewhere and they just had an experience with the Spirit, or they just felt the presence of Jesus, and he just showed them the path. And now I am starting to understand this by having this conversation with you. I feel that God or Jesus or whatever that spirit is, you have that in your heart, and that is a ray of light or a little blinking spot in your heart. No matter what you are doing, you are drinking alcohol, you are into girls, or you are a convicted felon, or whatever you do, you just don't have to lose that ray of light or that seed of light that is in your heart. And one day it just pops up to be a fully grown tree, and that happens with that experience. Maybe I have articulated it in a right way or not.
No, I like the way you put that. It's like you have the seed, but you have to find a way to water the seed to get it to grow. And that seems like that's what religion and spiritual encounters do. Is they're the water for that seed that allows you to grow into a plant.
Cool.
Great way of looking at it.
Okay. Let's just come back to roofing. I agree with you on the point that you don't have to post these project pictures, because this is not what your customers want to see. Like, I have done inspections and I have done this and that, and I'm working on 100 square roof. But there is another problem here too, Wesley, that most guys, like you just said, that they are hiring 10 or 15 sales reps in a territory. They are assigning them the homes or the numbers, and they are just telling that we are creating a brand, whereas these sales reps, they haven't even stepped on roofs. Let's just say they haven't even stepped on roof. That is a different problem. They don't even know what they are suggesting or what they are advising to the customer, yet they are selling roofs. So what are your thoughts about this? Like, where would that take them?
I mean, I have a bad taste in my mouth because I've put in the work and the effort to learn my trade, and I don't appreciate the part of the industry that throws guys out on the streets to the wolves to line their pockets. When they're doing that, it's all about money. Make no mistake. If you're not going to spend the time and your own money to properly educate these people beforehand, then all you're doing is just throwing them out on the street trying to line your pockets. So yeah, the lack of training is that is the problem in the entire industry as a whole, from owners to salesmen to production. to actual construction workers themselves not getting properly educated, to all the way through the insurance claims process, desk adjusters, field adjusters. I do not like seeing so many people in the industry that I work in that are completely uneducated, and it's not even their fault. But it is most of their fault for not wanting to continue and actually educate themselves. I mean, I've met some of these roofing company owners that have sold for millions and millions that have openly told me they know nothing about roofing. Yet they started an entire company, and I'm not saying names or anything, but they literally just said, I'm a business person. I did this for the money. Made $10 million, $20 million, whatever it is, I've also met people that, like Raymond, for example, who stuck with it and spend their time educating people and are doing very well. But there's just not enough people like Raymond out there. There's not enough people like
Raymond from Perimeter Roofing.
Yeah. I mean, that guy spends his time to train people, spends his time with the community. Sure, does he tells his story of success to help others, but he doesn't do it in a way where he's not there to educate people. And it's very obvious the few people that actually are educated in the industry and want to help. I've spent so much of my time trying to build sales teams, and my training has always started with the basics of, it's a very boring, and that's why most people don't make it through, because it's more of like a school. I've created entire training binders that most of these gurus would want to sell you for $1,000 a pop, and I mean, I've done this 10 years ago, but now AI can do all that. It's like, man, I spent 10 years doing this. Now you just freaking tell Chat GPT to do it, and it does it in freaking 45 seconds, right?
Yes.
But most people don't want to spend the time to actually read and educate. Instead, they just see the quick money. And I was hinting on, if you see a company that has a bunch of sales reps out there and they don't talk about the details of roofing, the actual construction aspects, the owner of that company started it for the money. It's that simple. If an owner is not willing to educate themselves before throwing out people uneducated, then it's about the money. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, because there are some instances where that's successful, but 98% of them are not. So yes, you will see the few here and there, these big success stories, but as a whole, there's not very many. Even I'm in Houston. I mean, there's a lot of roofing companies here. There's only a few that have stuck around for a long time. I've seen them come and go. I was one of them. I was actually one of those companies. So it's sad that people are lazy nowadays. That is what it comes down to. At the end of the day, before all the computers and the internet and social media and being able to type a question into Google or Siri, you had to actually learn something. You had to pick up a tool and learn it. That's one thing I can credit to my dad, is as a kid, I learned how to, I have a truck full of tools that I roll with every day. I can use any one of them at any given time. I have a garage full of tools, full of saws, full of power tools that I can use. What I can tell you is that 70% of these owners can't. That is a fact. And if 70% of the owners can't, then how many of the salespeople are project managers? Let's go to the term project manager. That term is so loosely thrown around in this industry. It's a big pet peeve of mine. A project manager has to be able to teach the people that are working the project and maintain it, the operation. There are so many things that a project manager has to do to be titled a project manager. Whereas you see all of these roofing companies that do insurance claims call their uneducated sales canvassers project managers. And I despise that, because you can't be a project manager without understanding the project being done. It's that simple. So instead of, and there's courses, there's people that don't know shit about roofing trying to teach people about roofing and charging and getting rich from it. It's mind-boggling to me. But it's just the world that we live in, and a lot of it has to do with technology, social media, things becoming too easy and people not having the passion and the drive
Hmm.
to figure some stuff out on their own. That's my take on that.
Okay. I think we should talk about the fix as well. How can this be fixed? Like you have already mentioned that we need training and we need to train people, and Raymond does that. And I think a lot of people are doing the good stuff too. But how can we fix this? How can we fix the mindset?
I mean, my personal advice is going to be to
Hmm.
have faith. Like, find your faith. Like, you have to have a strong, you have to have a relationship with God, in my opinion, because you can't fix yourself on your own. We can't fix everything on our own. We actually have to rely on a higher power. And we live in it's a tumultuous world we live in. Everything seems to be stacked up against God. It's not cool to be a Christian anymore. And it does seem like some revival is coming back into that. I'm a perfect example of that. But I personally feel like it starts with God and your morals. And instead of money being the driving factor, if we would take money out of the picture, and sure, we have to pay our bills. We have to earn a living. But if we can simplify it down to, once again, like, why do people, in my opinion, need to figure out why they're doing this? If we would get rid of which you're never going to get rid of it, but if you minimize the mindset of you're doing this for money, and people actually start doing it because they care about houses, they care about people, they enjoy the satisfaction of a completed project. I think it starts there. Is you would really have to, though, for things to get better, in my opinion, a lot of people would need to leave the industry. So it's bittersweet saying that, because it's like, sure, I can personally get better, but I don't see this industry getting better because the world has continued to be led by greed rather than Christ. I just think that we have to, for the industry to get better as a whole, we have to get back to not doing it for the money, like not doing it for the notoriety or for the popularity contest. But if people would actually the last thing I said was, for this industry to really get better, in my opinion, it would have to be reduced. The amount of people in it would need to be reduced. But to me, it seems like the more people that come into it for greed, the more people from the other side, the contractors, well, now the PAs, now everybody wants to be a PA because they see all the money they're making and they don't have to work. I mean, and then you see the adjusters. Well, it's hard to find good adjusters now because the insurance companies are so greedy. And I hate to say it, but everything comes down to the dollar bill, And I really feel that way, that if people would actually trust me, if I was in this industry for the money, I'd have been gone a long, long time ago. Because I'm not one of these guys trying to get rich quick. I've never even taken that approach. I want to do a slow and steady race like a turtle, so people remember Wesley Bryce, because I want to build, like you said, a legacy. And my legacy is not involve money whatsoever. It involves what are people going to think whenever I'm gone. If people just thought about that and completed in the industry as a whole, we would probably get a lot better. And I do think that people like me need to be more open and giving advice to strangers. A lot of people don't like to give or drop the golden nuggets. Hell, there's people that make you pay for the golden nuggets. I'll drop those little golden nuggets on my Facebook online any day of the week. I've never charged for advice. Sure, I've come into companies like this and get paid to start operating them, but it's all about, there's a lot of greed in this industry, and it's always the next best thing. And yeah, it starts to leave a bad taste in your mouth. The more you talk about it, the more you think about it, it's like, man, if people if we lived off of a set of morals and we took the money out of it, and it wasn't just everybody saying you can do this to make money, you can do that, then I think the industry would get better. And it's not just the roofing industry and the construction. I mean, there's many industries like this. I mean, it's really the way that the world is operating right now, which is off of egos, greed, and turning away from God.
Yes, you are right here. Wesley, I think that we cannot control people, and we cannot control these guys who are running these kind of companies or who want to run these kind of companies, because they are more powerful than us. That's what my belief is. But what we can do is that we can educate people, like the guys who are looking for jobs. We can stop them from working for guys like these. Like, we can educate them that these are the companies that you should work for. So what advice do you have for people who are trying to get a job in roofing, and you just want to tell them that these are the kind of companies or these are the things that you should look for when working for a company?
I would personally track down the higher ups in the company and check them out on a personal level, not just their business page. See what they're really about. Like, if, for example, and I'll use myself as an example, if somebody wanted to work for me and they went to my Facebook profile, they're not going to see drug use, alcohol, out partying late.
Yes.
They're going to see pictures of me and my family, me with the community. I would do your research not based off of what Google says, but what you actually feel with that person. Just because if you wanted to jump into roofing, anybody will hire anybody in roofing sales for the most part. I won't, but most people, if they were like, hey, I want to be a roof salesman, they could go get a job with any company for the most part. But there's just the same way. I think that salesmen or roof salesmen need to vet the owners more than the owners need to vet them, or their sales managers. The higher ups need to be the ones being vetted, because if they don't have the right mindset and the morals and their stuff in place, they're just going to teach somebody like me when I was a kid going into this the wrong way. And once you have been taught the wrong way at a young age, it's really hard to break out of that. So my advice would be, make sure that the people that you go and work for, they don't necessarily have to be the biggest online presence, but it's more or less make sure they're good people, because there are a lot of bad apples in the industry, in every industry. But instead of saying, oh, I'm going to jump to this company because they're offering 60% of the profit margin, but that ain't going to last. It's just not going to work. I don't care, and it all comes back down to that dollar bill, right? But if you actually learn about what somebody does outside of work, you'll probably get a feel of how they are in the actual workplace. My opinion.
Wonderful. And you know how I would summarize this is that if you are going to work for a company, you just have to look for one thing, that if that company cares about the people they work for, they work with, and that's just all.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you have to have an ability to find genuine people.
I want to talk about insurance for a while as well with you, Wesley, because I think that you have some extensive experience with that. So how would you summarize your experience with insurance since beginning till now?
Summarize would be, that'd take a long time, but I mean, in summary, there's always going to be a spot for insurance. There's always going to be losses where an insurance company is responsible to pay out. And unfortunately, as time progresses in my career, the last 16, 17 years, the insurance takes less and less responsibility, less and less accountability, and makes it much harder and harder. It's not just for the contractor. Getting an insurance company claim paid out properly takes the biggest toll on the homeowners, the policyholders themselves. So what I've seen is you have to actually have experts these days and be prepared to explain to homeowners that this is going to take probably a year. I'm not talking about a little $12,000 claim, but anything that's extensive with like a tree through a house or something over $40,000, $50,000 claim is typically going to take a level of experienced people way beyond what the insurance carrier is providing on their end. So somebody like myself, as a contractor, I used to always be able to get things paid for by simply documenting properly, and here's my estimate. Well, nowadays, that doesn't work. So I'm even being forced these days to use a public adjuster. Shout out to Sandy Davis, because that's who I use on most of my claims, and Cal Spoon. Used a few times, but I am, as an experienced person now, I'm being forced to use those people, and then even those claims are being forced to go to litigation. So to me, in insurance claims, I live on the Gulf Coast too, so everybody around the nation has different deductibles, right? But In Harris County and Galveston County, we have some of the highest deductibles in the nation. I mean, it's 2 to 5%. So the reality is most of the time, not most, but it's getting to be most, but for a simple roof replacement, it's not even worthy of making a claim for a roof in many instances these days. So where it's really heading is if you have a 3% deductible and you have a $250,000 house, well, you're now approaching the fact that your deductible is, $7,500, $8,000, but then your roof's 15 years old, so you have an actual cash value on the roof, or RPS. So right now, in the situation our insurance industry is in Houston, is more often than not, it's not even worth the homeowner making a claim on a roof only. Unfortunately, that's the way that it's becoming. And because nowadays the insurance, it's different. You get dinged now and your premiums increase, just like if you got into a car wreck with homeowners insurance now. And people are failing to realize that you make an insurance claim and get $6,000 or $7,000 from the insurance, that's going to be on your claim history now for 5 to 7 years, and your future premiums are going to pay for it. So what I feel like is that you have to actually be educated in not only construction, but you have to know what the policy covers, what it doesn't cover, and what is the risk versus the reward for a homeowner moving forward making a roof-only claim. So I typically will push homeowners to make a lot slower decision than an impulse decision on whether to file a claim or not. Filing a claim doesn't mean nowadays you just pick up the phone, call, the adjuster comes out and writes a check. That's not how it works these days. Now it's the insurance comes out and finds every single reason not to pay, and then if you want them to pay anything, you're going to have to get somebody, a public adjuster involved. Well, that's 10% of your claim, so you got to start factoring that in. Okay, so now you're going to get $7,000, but the PA is going to take $700 or $800. Well, if that doesn't work, then it's going to get a lawyer involved. Then you're going to get nothing, right? So in my opinion, it's a focus on old roofs that actually need to be replaced rather than an 11-year-old roof that had hail this big. So it comes down to, being honest and being genuine. Are you out chasing money or are you trying to help people? You're not helping anybody by getting them to make a claim on an 11-year-old roof that has nickel-sized hail damage. You're actually going to hurt them. So in my opinion, the industry and the insurance is bad on both sides, and it's lack of education because the insurance companies do not educate these adjusters at all. I mean, at all. And I've seen, as a preferred contractor, we don't participate. Well, there are contractor programs that you can work for carriers, and we're in one of them. We don't actually work and do the work. We just wanted to see what the requirements were and what they were doing. And we see the training, and each carrier has different guidelines and restrictions and regulations. And so there's no set standard in our industry. And until there's a set standard, the insurance companies are going to continue to do whatever they can to not pay claims. And then at the other end, you're going to have a continuous abundance of salesmen trying to get the insurance to pay on something they're not going to pay. And who loses in the end? It's the homeowners. It's the actual homeowners. And that's why premiums like, the house I live in, we're talking about insurance is $11,000 a year with a 3% deductible. It's unaffordable. This roof's 7 years old. So that's just showing you that you 3% deductible is almost $12,000. I can put my roof on cash for $12,000.
Yes.
And still make money.
Okay. I think we talk a lot about filing the claim, but we should talk about choosing the policy as well, because I think that most homeowners, like you just said, that they need to be educated, and the contractors, they need to be educated as well. So let's just say I am moving to the States and I am having my home for the very first time in the States, whatever state that is, but I have just moved to the US and now I am going to own my own house. What are the things you feel a roofing contractor should know or a homeowner should know when it comes to choosing the right policy?
I mean, start with what type of roof system do you have on your home, and what is the life expectancy of that roof system in your region. So the average roof in Houston, shingle roof, is going to last 15 to 18 years. But the average shingled roof in Kansas, minus a tornado, is going to last a lot longer. So the first step is to know the type of roof system you have and the life expectancy in your region of that roof system. And then you need to know how old is your roof, because then you can start preparing for, okay, now I know what it is, how long it's going to last, how much longer it has. That's going to really help guide you on if you actually want to buy that property or not. So here in our area, if your roof is 15 years or older, the majority of carriers, and I'm talking 80% and higher, are going to put you on a reduced coverage, whether it be actual cash value or roof surface payment, RSPS, RPS, whatever you want to call it, endorsement, basically meaning that you're still going to be paying insurance, but if you need to file a claim, you're going to get a very reduced settlement. So that's what you really need to know is, okay, how old is my roof? What type of roof? How long is it going to last? And is this really worth it? Or should I just convince the seller to pay half now and I'll pay half and buy the house and put a brand new roof on right now? Or should I wait a few years and save up because I know I only have 6, 7, 8 more years to go? But it very much relies on what is your insurance premium going to be as well. So, and just like insurance carriers tell you to get 3 bids, sure, that's a great approach. I don't ever discourage that, because people are going to buy off value, not price, for the right person with me. An insurance carrier, the same thing. I tell everybody, get 3 quotes. Get Allstate, get Goosehead, get Velocity, all these different carriers. At least get 3 so you can understand that and get a base of, because one might be cheap, but they're going to get nothing when it comes time to pay. One might be really high. So there's a lot of factors in it comes down to education. The agents, one fault that agents is they'll sign you up. They're looking for a sale too. They're not going to explain all your coverages, because they're going to be like, oh, well, it's in the policy. You should have read it. I think there needs to be some laws and instilled for agents that if they're going to write policies that are not going to produce a payout, they need to be explaining that to customers, which unfortunately doesn't happen. Hurricane Beryl happened here. It was a Cat 1 last year in Houston. And I can't count the amount of people in my neighborhood, right around here in my neighborhood, that went to file a claim to learn they had a 5% or 10% hurricane deductible. There's no claim to make. There is no claim to make unless you had a tree go through the whole house and you have extensive damage. The hurricane deductible is different here than your wind and hail. So you have a wind and hail deductible. Well, then you also have a fire or other occurrence deductible, which is usually a low one. But then you also have your nice little tropical storm or named storm deductible here. Well, that named storm deductible is, in my area, is 3 to 10%. 3, 5, or 10. It's very tough finding 2%. The farther you get away from the coast, the easier it is to find those. But the insurance companies aren't sitting here going to take these risks anymore, because there's so many roofing companies that tried to push the claims and get roofs paid for. They fought back. We dug ourselves in this hole. It's the truth. And it took slowly but surely, year after year, you could see this progressing. And that's why you see this retail market exploding now. And when the retail market is exploding right now, it drives the price down, the profit margins down, and only the strong are going to survive this wave over the next 3 to 5 years. And it's not going to, I don't see it changing and going back in time to where it used to be. So I advise anybody young coming into this game to start educating yourself on what it costs to put a roof on. Like, find a company that's going to tell you the truth on what labor, and be an open book and show you what your materials are, show you what your order is, show you what they paid the crew. Find a company where the owner's not scared to get you involved with the crew. Let these guys talk to the crews, because at the end of the day, that's what a real team is. Not, oh, this is your commission on paper, but no, don't call Victor. We only have a project manager. You don't talk to the crews. You know, that goes on a lot too, and I could go on, obviously.
Is there anything else that you want to share with people about insurance?
Just don't make it a priority. You know, don't make insurance your only way out, because if the industry that you're doing is insurance, and it's just going to continue to, you see all these other states, they're just now starting to encounter what we've sat in Houston and Galveston for the last 5 years. Oh my gosh, they have a $5,000 deductible. And I'm like, that's cute. We have a $25,000 deductible. So like, I just encourage you not to focus on insurance, focus on construction and somebody that actually needs a roof. Don't be dishonest and tell somebody they need a new roof if it hailed this big, because the reality is pea and marble and nickel-sized hail. I'm sorry, you can argue, these guys can argue all the way, but it's not going to total your roof out to where it's not, you know, don't focus on insurance, focus on people that actually need your service. And there's a huge market for that.
Cool.
Every year, especially if you live in a bigger city, you know, bigger cities like Houston, there's 6-8 million people here. If you can't find a retail market here, that means that you're not good at what you do and you should find a new job.
Okay, so as we are heading towards the end of the interview, Wesley, I was doing my research on you the other day. Like, we had this interview scheduled, I think a month or two back. I did my research on you, but then I fell sick and the interview got cancelled, and then we are rescheduling it now. I read a post on your Facebook or Instagram, maybe. That line said that if you are in a down, try a different approach. I really loved that line, and I think that this means so much to you. So I wrote it down, and since that, this line is just engraved in my mind, you can say. Like, if you are in a down, try a different approach. So does that mean something to you?
Yeah, of course, because it's what is the definition of insanity? They say, like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting the same a different result, right? You can't live in your not just in your business life, but your personal life, doing the same thing over and over and expecting great to come out of it if it already hasn't, right? So Jesse, like the owner of Sargon, he really, I mean, his line to me, like, that always sticks in my head, and I talk about it a lot, is it's very similar, but it's, if you want to succeed in business, sometimes you have to pivot. Sometimes you have to do a complete 180. And that was for me going into this. Like, when we started Sargon, I told him, you're thinking, Jesse is thinking insurance. And I was 3.5 years ago thinking retail, because I knew the industry and where it was going. And he's taught me that you have to be able to welcome a different approach and welcome change in order to get a different result. Because otherwise you're going to drive yourself insane doing the same thing over and over and over. The chances of you coming out different is not very high. And yeah, my totally different approach now is to put God first and family first and kind of work secondary. And if you live a healthy mental life with your family, it's going to reflect on your work. Not the other way so much around, where you put work first and then work yourself and then expect your family to all fall together if you're just overburdening yourself at work. A different approach is necessary in almost every aspect of life. And if it's not working, you have to fix it. And the only way to fix things is to take a different method of approach to do that.
Okay. I have another question here, Wesley, that how do you recognize that an approach is not working? Like, most people, they have this habit, or they enjoy having a different approach every single time. So they cannot just stick to one thing and see that if it actually works or not. So how do you analyze that part?
I mean, time is comes into play there. You have to be able to balance. Okay, how much time and energy did I put in it this way? Did I give it enough time to see if it's going to
Hmm.
work? And if it's not, like that's that's part of life. There, like one of life's mysteries is you have to. I mean, you have to. Sometimes you get lucky, but a lot of times you have to take time and set it aside to analyze things. And if we live in these crazy busy lives where sometimes we don't give it enough time, or sometimes we give it way too much time. And I think that's what will make somebody a great business person or not, is being able to find the right time to make that pivot in business, to make that change.
Hmm.
Some of the factors obviously you're gonna look at your return on investment. You have to look at exterior, external feedback, whether it be from
Hmm.
customers, suppliers, crews. You really have to just pay attention and keep your head on a swivel and make sure that you're not overlooking things. And a lot of times that just is slowing things down. And instead of like, I have a habit sometimes when I get busy, just go,
Hmm.
go, 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 go.
Hmm.
If you get into that situation, then you're going to overlook things, and sometimes just make some time for yourself to sit down and think about things. Like a lot of times I go outside and I just sit in the back and just think, give yourself some time instead of always go go go, because you're going to miss the opportunity to realize when a change is needed if you don't slow it down.
Okay, just by these words, Wesley, what you have done in my mind is that you have unlocked a new dimension about the ROI. Because when we hear about ROI, 99% of the time we link it to money. But I think that you just mentioned that you have to analyze that if you are getting any ROI or not. The ROI is that if you are putting your time into something and you are not gaining the results that you wished for, then that is an ROI as well. And if you are putting your thoughts into something and you are not having that peace that you wanted or wished for, that is a ROI as well, and that is signaling you that you have to change something.
100%. I mean, and yeah, I mean, and your personal mental health is the biggest ROI over a dollar bill. I mean,
Hmm.
it doesn't take a Lamborghini and $1 million house to make people happy. I mean, the reality is, if you do have a Lamborghini and $1 million house and
Hmm.
you're still happy with family, that's awesome. That's amazing. But that's not the requirement to make people happy. The requirement to make people happy is living a spiritual life and making sure they have a support system. You don't have to have kids, or wife, but a support system, whether it be friends, family, and and making sure to just enjoy life a little bit. I have the benefit of being able to say, "Hey, I'm going to play golf," or "Hey,
Hmm.
I'm going to go take my daughter. I'm going to I'm going to get home early. I'm going to take my daughter and go swimming. We're going to go to the park." Not everybody has that luxury in their career. Thankfully, I do. I do feel I've earned that.
Hmm.
But that's the beautiful thing about the roofing industry, is we have the ability to control our schedules. If you do it the right way, you'll live a mentally healthy life and you'll get that return on investment. If you do it the wrong way and you spend that free time partying, getting messed up, not spending time with the people that are going to help you grow, not spending time with the people that are going to educate you further, you're just going to get pulled further and farther away into the other aspect where none of this was worth your return on investment. And that's why you do see kind of like the scale of and the amount of roofing salesmen, project managers that just come and go. It's kind of like the restaurant industry. Not very many people stay in it, and it's for a reason, because
Hmm.
it is all of the things that we're talking about on this podcast. It's not just cut and dry. It's not simple. It's not a simple thing to make sure that you're staying on the right track mentally and spiritually so you can turn that into success with the business. And I do strongly feel it starts up here. And if you're in the right mindset in front of a customer and you have a positive attitude and you're enjoying your own life, you get to spread that positivity to them, and it'll help you. I say it all the time. People, I don't go and close deals because of Sargon. I can wear this shirt, right? I don't have to have my Sargon
Hmm.
shirt on. They're not buying a
Hmm.
roof from Sargon. They're buying the roof from the individual in front of them out of trust with them. That is reality. It doesn't matter. Sure, there are a few people that will buy it or want to do business with the company just because they have been in business for 40 years, but that is becoming more rare than it used to be, in my opinion.
Thank you so much for that. And I agree that people have this great intuition and they can sense the kind of person you are. And if you really have that vibe that you care about them, you will succeed ultimately. Or even if you pretend it, you won't be in the game for a long term, because people have this ability to sense what you really hold inside. So I really enjoyed the conversation with you, Wesley, and I have massive respect for your journey. My last question to you is, you are a guy who have been into alcohol and who have been a convicted felon, and you owned your own company and then you closed it. So, and then you just showed up to Jesse. He is not your friend, but now he's one of your greatest friend. But at that time, he was just a customer to you maybe. What do you feel is the one thing that Jesse saw in you that, okay, I have to work with Wesley? And vice versa, what is the one thing that you saw in Jesse that made you feel that this is the person that if I work with him, my life is going to be changed?
I think it's almost a universal answer for both of us because, and it's passion. Jesse, I did his roof and never really even met him when I did it. He was out of town. I was working with his wife. So he didn't know me on a personal, we didn't know each other at all as far as personal level. I was just a roofing guy that showed up and did a good job on his roof. But when we met, he realized that I have a lot of passion for this industry. I could have left it so many different times. The thoughts crossed my mind many a times. I've been offered several different types of sales jobs because at the end of the day, I'm a good salesman. Let's keep it real, and I can talk and sell anything if I wanted. But he realized that I wasn't in this industry for the money, and I explained that to him in the first meeting. I'm in this industry to create a long-lasting name. Whether it be with you or somebody else, my name is going to be well respected in my industry because of the passion that I have. And he realized that, and he also realized I wasn't scared to put in the hours and work because Jesse he's in the oil field. He's a consultant and he works extremely long hours for months on end. And so what I learned about him was, okay, I understand that this guy's willing to put in the work because he works even more hours than I work. And if you work more hours than me, I know you're dedicated. And then I also saw the way he carried himself as a professional. I mean, he really, I've turned it into more of a professional person. 3 years ago, I'd show up because I didn't care. I'd just be myself. But I'd show up to meetings in Nike sweats all year long. Like I didn't care about what I was wearing, but I learned through him that it does matter, especially when you're at the events and you want to grow and meet higher up people. Like you might be comfortable in your own shoes, but you still got to tuck your shirt in and wear a belt, Wes. Like you still so I just saw like how he carried himself and how he was respected by other people by the way, doing the Facebook research. I didn't just jump up and say, yeah, and I'm sure, and I know for a fact he did the same with me. So we just kind of realized that we both had a lot of passion. And if you have two people that have a lot of passion, then you know that you have a better chance than if only one of them has passion than the other. So I think it's universal. I mean, it was, he knew I was educated and I wasn't scared to learn and I had a lot of passion. I knew he was educated in his field and he had a lot of passion. And it's like, well, let's just put two and two together. I mean, it seems like we can do this. And, we're not here. This is a long-term thing for Sargon. I'm not here to, obviously the viewers here aren't, but Sargon wasn't created to jump up and have 20 sales reps and file a bunch of insurance claims and get rich. It's actually the opposite. We sniffed out the way the industry was turning and created our business model as a retail model before it actually happened. And we did it at the perfect time because all the stuff that we have been preaching the last 3 years is coming to light. And you didn't have to have a crystal ball to see it. You just had to have experience in the industry. And that's what I brought to the table. And I think that we're on a good pace. We have a lot of growing to do, but we're doing it at the right pace. And to where we're not going to crash and burn. I mean, we made it through a hurricane last year with zero issues. You know, we have a lot of good reviews, and we're still here after the first hurricane, after 2 years in business, and we didn't take on too much work or too little. You know, we know where our boundaries are, and we know where our passion lies, and it's helping homeowners and not over-promising and under-delivering, and that's what we do.
Perfect. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, by the way. I feel that we have already done almost 90 minutes of discussion, and this is like, I feel that if we stretch it too long, it's going to be difficult for the viewers or the listeners to listen to this as well. We should sit down again later this year, because I think we have explored how you entered into roofing and what was your journey. But I would love to sit down with you and Jesse combined later down the year, and we can talk about how you guys built a company that you just aimed for. And speaking of passion, I agree with you, because I feel that if two people are sitting in a bus or a boat and they want to drive it to the same direction, to the same goal, they will do it. And if someone wants something else and the other person wants something else, they will never make it work. So I really enjoyed the conversation with you, Wesley. Thank you so much for your time. Any signing off notes or advice you have specifically for people about keeping the connections they have in their life? Like, you have just kept your friend Jesse, you have kept your wife and your daughter. So how important do you feel is the importance of keeping the beloved connections in your life, and what advice do you have for people to just sign off?
Well, I appreciate you having me. I like the fact that you reached out and, you know, and recognize that I might have some advice or an opinion that might help somebody. You know, that means a lot. I mean, the best advice I can give is just from my personal experiences. Don't let an outside force or an outside substance control your life. You know, let God control your life, and then everything else falls into place. But if you find yourself in a position of putting alcohol or drugs, or there's many other things that, me for one, was alcohol, but if you find yourself being led by an external force other than your faith, go back to faith and start there, and you'll see the rapid changes that your faith can and do what you mean. You know, if you're going to say that and you're going to do it, then actually practice what you preach, right? That's kind of, don't just say, oh, I go to church, and you got to put in some time and hang out with the people there. You got to spend time developing a relationship with God. So my best advice is, don't let an external force run your life. Instead, let God do it, and everything will fall into place.
Do you read books?
I do.
Okay, I have a recommendation for you. It's a book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I will drop its link in our chat as well. And you're going to love that book, because it will relate to your journey. I will just like to end this. I will just repeat one line, my most favorite line from that book. The author says that your treasure is where your tears are. That's where your treasure is. So you have to, just as I said, you have to go back to faith. So you have to go back to your tears, and you have to find your treasure there. Thank you so much for your time, Wesley. I have immense respect for your journey, and I wish you really the best in your personal life, with your family, and for the business as well. Have a great 2025. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
I appreciate you, Mohammed. Let's run it back at the end of the year, bro, with Jesse.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.
All right,
Bye-bye.
brother.